What's going on, guys? This is King Orange here, and I'm here for another video, and my first video with my new YouTube channel name. And here today, guys, I am going to be talking about with you the Battlefield 5 beta. I know my review's a bit late, but you know, school's been keeping me busy and junk, so I wasn't able to get to it earlier. So let's talk about this crap. Oh my goodness. Okay, so how do I sum up this beta? It has a long way to go. That's honestly the best way to sum it. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. I'm just kidding. Okay. In all seriousness, what do I think of it? Honestly, I feel like it has a lot of room for improvement. I think that DICE is really not thinking things through. I think that they're trying too hard to solve problems that don't really actually exist. And, you know, all the ideas they stated and stuff gameplay-wise really did interest and excited me. But now when I actually think them through, I think they honestly, in a lot of areas, do more harm to the game than good. So, yeah, I guess first I'll start with what the beta gets right. Well, first thing, and this is to be expected, graphics. Graphics for this game are absolutely superb. They look fantastic. They pretty much are like Battlefield 1's, but even better, and you know, they look really good. So yeah, the graphics are great. The sound design, I think, also does really well. I think the sound design overall is pretty darn good as well. I think occasionally the sounds will go through glitches and junk, but that's to be expected from a beta, so it's no big deal to me. And then, the next thing I will give credit is the gunplay. They definitely have tightened the gunplay up from Battlefield 1, which was like, you know, the gunplay in Battlefield 1 was good, but it never quite, you know, it never quite hit the mark for Battlefield gunplay, considering that Battlefield 1's was very randomized. Very random number generated, you know, the bullet spread was a little too crazy, and overall I think that kind of downgraded the game's experience. Battlefield 5 fixes that issue. Now, in doing so, it creates a whole new problem, but just the gunplay on its own, I think, does well. Another thing I think it gets right is, I think the two maps that we got for the beta, I think they're fairly decent. It kind of will lead into my negatives, because it's like one map I really like and the other one I absolutely despise. So yeah, I guess, well, that's really about it. I can't really say much more. Like gunplay, graphics, sound, I guess the modes were good, like Conquest and Grand Operations were good, but I have issues with both of them, so yeah, that's really about it. I can really only think of that for the positives. Now let's move on to the negatives. Well, actually wait, there is one more positive I will state. Surprisingly for a beta, the netcoding is actually pretty darn good. Like, I never really ran into many crashes or not even that much lag. Like, I only went through about, at most, 3 laggy games, and I only went through 1 game crash, which for a beta, I consider pretty darn good. So, I'll give credit to that. Okay, now let's move on to what I don't like. Where do I get started? I guess I should probably highlight the elephant in the room. Most Battlefield fans have already talked about it, and I will give my opinion on this. The time to kill. Where I agree, like, pretty much, and yeah, I'm just gonna state the time to kill is way too freaking short. Alright? Like, this is like fucking insane, alright? Like, literally, the time to kill is absolutely abysmal. It doesn't, like, the time to kill basically has it where you die so fast that it's like a blink of an eye, you're dead. Like, you honestly die faster in this game than even Call of Duty, and that's saying a lot, because trust me, Call of Duty, you die pretty darn fast. So to have this game have it where you die even faster, it just, no. Personally, I think this creates a lot of problems. It makes it where people aren't really banding together as much. They're not fortifying things. And the honest truth is that they're just not... It leaves a lot of room for cheap deaths. And that's kind of the main issue I can think of with the time to kill. It just makes it where you run into a guy with an assault rifle and then boom, you're just dropped dead. You have no... It makes it where the gunplay kind of devolves to, like what I stated, the problem with Call of Duty's multiplayer formula and time to kill is that it pretty much devolves what otherwise would be a fairly skillful game and basically just makes it come down to who sees who first. And I think it is the case in this game as well. It's pretty much devolved into who has seen who first and who just reacts faster, I guess. But that's never been what Battlefield has been about with gunfights. It's about superior use of cover. It's been about, aiming for the head, burst fire, control fire. That way you don't, spread out your bullets or get a lack of accuracy, a cap for bullet drop, that sort of thing. And it's like, this game doesn't really account for these things because you die so fast that it's like, there's just no way of really avoiding death if someone spots you. The only thing you can really do is just shoot them before they shoot you. Running to cover is futile because you die so quickly that you do that. You can try to fall back a little bit, but you'll more than likely just get shot immediately and die. And then even if you have teammates, it's like the time to kill is so fast that one guy ambushes and can literally drop a whole team before anyone realizes what's even going on. Like, yes, Battlefield 1, you could do this as well, but the move was a lot more risky because, people had a decent amount of health. You had to unload half a clip into someone before they even died. And I know that seems, not like half, more like a quarter of a clip in Battlefield 1, but besides the point, in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4, and pretty much every Battlefield before, it was a very tactical decision on whether or not it was a good idea to try to just, ambush. And in this game, that's not really the case because it's really one of the only viable tactics. It's like you try most of everything else and you're just gonna get shot at and die instantly. And it's like, I hear people try to defend this because they're like, oh, it makes the game more realistic. Two things. First off, I don't think a game that that claims it's World War II and has all the... You know what, I'm not gonna finish that because it would just go back to the controversy thing, but I think having people running around with prosthetic arms is far from realistic. But secondly, it's like fun realistically comes before realism from a mechanical standpoint. Alright? Now people think that's hypocritical considering how considering how everyone knows my position on the controversy, but that's because the situation with the controversy, the decisions that DICE made, they're not essential to gameplay. They have no actual technical effect on the gameplay. Which means to me, they're unnecessary. This, on the other hand, every inaccuracy that Battlefield 1 did that tied to gameplay was a necessary choice to me. Now, I think Battlefield 1 wasn't perfect with it. There were still things they could have done to try to get a better balance, but it's like, at least they tried. But it's like, I think people were giving the complaint of how archaic Battlefield 1 could feel at times, and I think Battlefield 5 is almost taking it to the opposite extreme. It's like this game, honestly, in my view, has more in common with an actual war simulator with mechanics than a previous Battlefield, which it's like it's just, in my view, Battlefield's realism through mechanics has just never aligned with its overall tone and the reason that its gameplay in previous entries worked, which was, basically you would just be this man, you'd be this one dude, part of this huge army, you'd be having battle lines, you'd be contributing in meaningful ways, and it's like the idea was that even in poor situations, you could still come back up, fight back, and maybe win the game if you are skillful enough. And by you, I'm referring to you and your teammates, of course, but in this game, that's not the case. There's really, the thing I always admired about previous Battlefields was the domino effect. Essentially, the idea that the impact, a decision one player makes, individually, it seems like a very small and insignificant decision, but in the long run, it really impacts the course of the game in meaningful ways, depending on what they did. It could be as little as healing a certain amount of teammates to, say, blowing up a tank. And, it just created a cool domino effect. This game seems to be lacking it for a multitude of reasons. The time to kill is one of them. Another problem is with the attrition system. Now, firmly, I thought the attrition system on paper was actually a relatively decent idea. The idea of not having, near unlimited ammo and making it where you actually had to rely on your teammates and also resupply at stations, and you couldn't just have unlimited amount of progression and just push up more and more and more and not have a halt, I think was actually a really clever idea. There's a couple of problems with it, though. And honestly, these problems have kind of added up where it's honestly, the decision to include it has honestly made me more concerned than excited now. The first one is, in my opinion, the time to kill in the attrition system, as far as health side is concerned, do not complement each other at all. Because if you thought the time to kill wasn't bad enough, just the idea of how quickly you die, thanks to the health attrition system, you don't even get full health back. Now, people think that this is some tactical thing, when in the end, I disagree. Personally, in my opinion, this actually makes it easier for casual players, or players that aren't really using a full skill set, because the idea is, in my view, when you really look at it, I'll probably explain more as I go on, but I guess I'll explain the problem. When you're getting shot at, say you're lucky enough to survive a gunfight, even with the low health, but you win, but you barely win. It's now you're left with so little health that it's one shot by the next guy and you're dead. And given that, you have to do a couple things. Either one, you have to avoid the objective and just go all the way back somewhere to replenish your health and ammo. Or you have to try to purposely rely on teammates that, aren't that competent. And what you get is kind of the opposite of its intended effect. The idea that the attrition system with health is supposed to make you more cautious and tactical, when in reality, it just makes you more... It kind of just slows the pace of the game to a grinding halt, and makes it where people kind of almost play more carelessly, because they're like, well, my health is so low, I'm gonna die anyways, so why not just, try to ambush someone? When it's the whole thing with this is that it creates a situation where, with good players, where it's no matter how good you are, no matter how many gunfights you win, you're eventually no longer going to be capable of winning anymore, because your health is going to be so unforgivably low. And it's like, that's kind of a problem that I share with all games that don't utilize a recharging health system, but games like Overwatch or Doom do it correctly because there's so many health packs and so many ways of retrieving health, and you don't have to rely on really much other people to do it, that it, works well. And people say, well, isn't the idea just to get more medics out there to throw health kits and revive you and stuff? Well, why would any medic realistically take that chance if the time to kill is so low? Why would they purposely run out in the middle of a battlefield with the risk of being shot and killed instantly just to revive your butt, which, unless you're playing it with friends, you don't even know them. And that's where you begin to notice the gaps that these systems have. Like I said, on paper, they seem like really good ideas. Now, the same problem goes with the ammo system. Except the ammo system kind of almost makes it, in a way, like, it's not as frustrating, but it also slows down the game probably even more than the health. Because with the ammo, you spawn with so little, so your instant reaction is going to be go to a kit. And like I said, given that, support players don't really provide much ammo, given that, it's like you're not even going to, like, realistically, you're not going to get the ammo you need from other players, so it just makes you want to go back to, and grab, ammos from the kits. All the way, like, back during the last checkpoint. And like I said, the problem with this is that it slows down the game so much that it turns, rather than these calculated and strategic pushes, it just turns the game into a grinding halt. I think there's a reason why in, like, Grand Operations, for example, I rarely see the offensive team win. Though, frankly, I see them win more. Like, frankly, I think I notice why they don't, like, win as often. I say Battlefield 1, which made the chances of the defender and attackers winning pretty equal. Like, defenders had better strategic locations and, more cover and junk, but the attackers had superior firepower due to everything Battlefield 1 would give you, plus attackers have more tanks and aircraft. It's like in this game, the vehicle gameplay is so limited that you can't really rely on that, and since the attrition system keeps forcing players to go back and get the ammo since, teammates won't really help out, it turns it from the strategic rush pushing to just a grinding hole. And due to that, any momentum that the offensive team gets is instantly cut off. There's no momentum, which just results in easy victories for the defenders. Like, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to this, but this is just an issue that I ran into. Now, as I was saying upon the maps, like, going to that, like I said, personally, I like Norvik. I think Norvik is good. I think it utilizes high ground and vantage points relatively well. Rotterdam, I do not like. I think Rotterdam is just an inferior version of the city that we got in Battlefield 1. And frankly, I think it's, like, devoid of any actual real tactics. And this comes from what I would consider one of the most game-breaking problems with Battlefield 5, aside from the time to kill and the attrition system, the vehicles. And I know what you're thinking. It's a Battlefield game. How could you screw up the vehicles? Well, let's just say DICE has turned the vehicles from these really overpowered strategic units that, skillful players could use to turn the tide of an entire battle to, honestly, kind of, really, they've become insanely underpowered now. To the point where, honestly, I think sometimes, like, in some cases, Norvik can utilize vehicles pretty decently, but for Rotterdam, vehicles are honestly more of a death trap than it is an actual asset. But yeah, like, vehicles have hit a point where it's become such a liability on maps like Rotterdam and a few other maps, like mostly Rotterdam, because the problem is the way they have basically the same amount of ways they can counter vehicles like in Battlefield 1, but now the vehicles are nerfed even further because not only is their firepower significantly nerfed, but it's another thing with the attrition system where not only that, but the tanks have limited ammo, and now they can't even fully repair. Now, I guess I'll discuss each of these individually. For one thing, the ammo system with the tanks. The limited ammo on the tanks, I would actually consider the... Oh my gosh. Like, I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's actually the one and probably only time that the attrition system actually works. But only because the thing is, with previous Battlefield games, the things that made tanks, and this is honestly to the extent that made offense really overpowered, especially in games like Battlefield 4, where the thing I noticed with Battlefield 4 is that on Conquest, a lot of the times it's, especially with tanks, it was very much like a maneuver war, if you will. Battle lines were, of course, drawn, but a lot of times the tanks, instead of being used to fortify those lines, were instead kind of being used to flank around and do that sort of things. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, except there was no potential risk with it. And I think with Battlefield 5, the way they're incorporating limited ammo on the tanks, where you have to make every shot count, and you're not going to be able to just go mainstream forever with such an overpowered vehicle, is actually a good idea. And it finally balances things, because it makes it where the momentum of a team, both in Conquest and Operations, while you can theoretically still keep it going forever if you balance things properly, there's going to be consequences of choice and sacrifice. It's like, do I, for example, say your team is about to take a point, but it feels like it needs a little more backup before it can. Either you can choose to go now and, you know, pretty much guarantee that line, but if you do that, then you're going to have to replenish before moving on to the next point, which may slow down the momentum. Or you can do the route where it's like, you know, if you think your team can take it on it without you, without the tank support, then you can replenish. It makes it where they do take it, you can move on with them and keep that momentum going, only with the risk that it's not really a guarantee that they're going to take the point. And that's what I like. It does potential gambles. And like I said, unlike infantry, where that sort of thing's kind of quite insignificant, with something as powerful as a tank, it is significant. So that's actually the one time I consider the ammo thing with the attrition system actually good. Now, moving on to the not being able to repair it all the way, I would arguably consider that the worst decision ever made within the course of this game, aside from time to kill. I am being for real. The fact that you can't recharge your vehicles all the way to full health unless at a ammo station, like the vehicle repair / health, like ammo stations, I consider retarded. The fact of the matter is, by doing this, you're creating two issues, because now it's like you're taking another extreme where it's like the ammo would have been enough for people to go back, and it, you know, the ammo would be a fair route, but now by having it where the tanks can't recharge in health all the way. Now, personally, I believe the idea of it not being able to recharge the full health while you're inside the vehicle could be a good idea. Like, while you're inside of it, while you're still operating it, you know, that would be nice, because then it would encourage you to actually move to a safe spot, get out of the vehicle and take that risk, and then fully repair it. or you would have to have teammates willing to do it for you. And it's like, that'd be fine, but no, even if you get out of the vehicle, pull out your toolkit and try to repair it that way, it won't do full health. At most, it'll only add 20 health points, or health percentage, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, are you kidding me? And due to this, it makes it where tanks have been devolved into more of these kill streak power-ups, if you could even call it that. Because like I said, they don't even do enough damage to represent that, but I'm talking by tactics. People are going to use them more for that than actual battle lines and actual support units, like, which is a shame because the tanks mechanically I actually think run decently well. I won't lie, the controls can be a little clunky, but I personally just associated that with the beta that could be ironed out in the final product. But mechanically I thought it was fine, and I thought the different tank classes were good. But unfortunately, it's like they've made the tanks both through the health, the ammo, that combined with so little damage output, because it's honestly less than even Battlefield 1, which, mind you, Battlefield 1 wasn't terrible with its tank output damage, but definitely was far more vulnerable to destruction than, say, Battlefield 4. And it's like I said, it's like, it's not that bad, and if it, like, it's bad when all these factors are being put together, and I think, personally, that kind of sums up the beta as a whole. Like, aircraft's kind of similar, except the flight mechanics are absolutely atrocious, unlike the tanks. The trucks are alright, but they need a lot more of them, like a lot more of the transport vehicles. There's not enough of them, at least on the maps we got. Gun-wise, personally, I think the weapons are fine. Like I said, the mechanics run well with them, though I do hope they improve on variety a little bit. And I personally do disagree with the skill tree, but I don't know. It's an interesting concept that I guess could serve well, though I definitely admit they need to let you change the trees on the slide and not make you have to purchase a second version of the same gun. But to sum it shortly, because like I said, I've already been speaking long enough, what do I think of the beta overall? Overall, I consider it decent, but without a doubt, it has a long way to go. Alright, to all those, all the reviewers that said, and all the Battlefield gamers that said it has a long way to go, yeah, you're absolutely right. It has a very, very long way to go. And, well, it just has a long way to go, has a lot to take care of, and a lot of things and problems to iron out. So, it's like, DICE has said they might be doing a second beta before the launch of the game, and I honestly hope that's true. And because, I think it needs it. Desperately. I think it desperately needs it. Like, if I'm gonna state the beta out of 10 right now, I hate to be negative about it, but it would have to be 5 out of 10. It's very mediocre. Like, it has a lot of good ideas, but good ideas are only as good as they're executed. Otherwise, there's no point. And like I said, I think DICE's problem is they're trying to overcompensate. They're trying to solve problems that didn't really exist. And they're introducing these new ideas, but they're not really taking into account how much it changes the game. And when you're trying to change the game so much to accommodate for just a few new mechanics, that's going to alienate people. And it's like, considering, like I said, I'm trying not to bring it up, but considering what you've already done with the controversy, it's like, you need to at least let your gameplay be appealing. That way, it's like, at least that could be a selling factor, but not even that's it. And it's kind of like, I'll talk about it during my actual, next few Battlefield 5 videos, and particularly why I believe Battlefield 5 will be a flop. But it's like, the problem is just they keep shooting themselves in the foot because they're kind of forgetting Battlefield's appeal, and they're not even getting it anymore. And when the community's just trying to remind them, they're being spiteful about it. And it's like, I can only hope they are just, hopefully they'll be a little more open to suggestion, at least with the gameplay, compared to how they were with the controversy and the cosmetics and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. Ears open, but I did watch their dev talk, and I might make a video talking about that maybe, but I don't know. But overall, the beta, 5 out of 10, it was okay. Like, it was very mediocre. I wouldn't say I hate it, but I didn't particularly love it either. It definitely did nothing to convince me, which is what I was hoping it would. I was hoping that it could at least tell me that, hey, the gameplay would be appealing and maybe I would want the game when it's used for only like $20. But nope, it didn't even do that. So, I don't know. Hopefully DICE will get their act together and fix this junk. But until then, guys, this is King Orange here, and I will see you next time. Peace.